So we are still on chapter 23, part 2, the topic of obsession. We are now dealing with the topic of means of combating obsessions. For a quick recap for those who are joining us now, we will define obsession as a consistent, persistent influence of one spirit upon another. And by influence, we going use as not being a positive thing, even if the intention behind it may be positive. The consequence will not be positive. An obsession is never a good thing. An obsession is never being performed by an evolved spirit. Obsessions, things for us, we can be obsessors. And I always say in our studies that the most important thing in the study of obsessions is to make sure that we ourselves do not become or not being an obsessed for someone else, incarnate or discarnate. And so far, and now Kardec divides the obsession in three. I like to divide it in grades 1, 2, and 3. And grade 1 is with the simple obsession. The second one, grade 2, would be the fascination. And grade 3, the most intense, the most intense would be what is called a subjugation. And the fascination, as I have studied so far, not being the most intense, is perhaps the most difficult to be resolved, is the one that perhaps causes the most amount of trouble, if not to that spirit, to him or herself, to the others around him or her. And in the topic of combating obsession, how to get rid of obsession, basically, what I see so far is the moral qualities that will make the difference. Our ability to vibrate at a higher level of those spirits who are vibrating at a low level, because if they are provoking, trying to harm someone, they cannot be vibrated at a higher level, of course. And in the process, we not only elevate ourselves, educate ourselves, you bring along those obsessors. They will learn from us. They will learn as we are learning. So last year, we stopped on question 252, or item 252, not questions yet. We covered on 251, corporeal subjugation, which was important for us to understand that at that time, the process of subjugation being the most intense, it can be so intense that it almost appears that physical body is being taken over by another spirit, the obsessor, which is not the case. But the subjugation could be so intense, so impressive, that it even may cause physical problems to that person being persecuted. And here, now Kardec on 252, start talk more of the moral imperfections of the one being persecuted. And who's going to read for us?
Yes, I will. Almost.
It's a little bit low, Zoraida.
Oh, okay. You hear me now?
It's still quite low unless everybody else is hearing more than I.
Don't hear me?
Oh, I can hear her.
Much better.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. 252. The moral imperfections of those who are obsessed are frequently an obstacle to their liberation. Following is a noteworthy example that may serve as a bit of instruction for everybody. For several years, a group of sisters had been the victims of very unpleasant acts of depredation. Their clothes were constantly being scattered throughout the house, even in the ceiling, and were shredded, cut, and poked, full of holes, no matter how careful the sisters were in keeping them locked up. Since these ladies were isolated in a small provincial town, they had never even heard of Spiritism. The first idea to occur to them was naturally to believe that they were being victimized by pranksters. But the incidents persisted, and the precautions they took led them to give up on that idea. Only after quite some time, and thanks to a few references, they were directed to us to try to determine the cause of disturbances, and if there was any possible remedy putting an end to them. The cause was obvious, but the remedy was very difficult. The spirit who was manifesting itself was obviously malevolent. Upon being evoked, it displayed great perversity and was inaccessible to good sentiments. However, prayer seemed to exert a good influence on it, but after a short break, the depredations began once again. A high order spirit then provided this advice.
Thanks. So Kardec starts here with the question of the issue of the moral imperfections that keep us, let's say, in relationship with our obsessors, and that the first step that someone that feels that's being persecuted, being obsessed, is to seek to elevate oneself, elevate the thoughts, elevate the qualities of the sentiments and emotions. So, in other words, evolve morally. And he used the example of those two sisters being persecuted by that spirit that was making use of physical phenomena. So there was someone in the vicinity that was able to provide ectoplasm for those spirits to be able to perform those physical phenomena of scattering the clothes, putting holes on the clothes and doing all this mess, throwing it around. And there was seen by the physical eyes of the people, therefore it was a physical phenomenon being performed. And not aware of that, of spiritism at the time, they could think whatever they could think. And just after a long time, the things would not stop. They were able to find the Paris Society of Spiritism. They found Kardec. They were able to. Kardec was able to, with his group, was able to get the spirit to communicate with them. But Kardec says over here, the spirit was extremely rebellious, completely inaccessible to good sentiments. Didn't want to hear it. We see that in our meetings quite often. However, prayer seemed to exert a good influence on it. So prayer had a temporary effect on that spirit. For a little while, you'd calm down, but after a while, the prayers would kind of wades off, and he would continue with his depredation. They were able to evoke a higher spirit to provide them advice. Here you see the humbleness of the group say, we cannot deal with the spirit. We need someone who knows better than us. And they resort to this higher spirit to help them. Okay, question, comments? Yeah, so far so good. Let's continue.
I think Shuan, something happened. He's not online anymore, right? At least for me.
Not on, yeah. I don't see anything on.
I'm sure he's trying. Give me a minute. Otherwise, I'll have to get out and try to share it myself.
So, since I'm giving some time to João, let me ask a question.
Yeah.
You were saying that one of the ways to try to overcome the obsession. And here we were talking about the moral thing is through studies, but we also spoke there are cases where the obsession happened with people that already been studying, and even they have positions of leadership on their respective places. So on those cases, how can one overcome that since the studying itself is something that's already been part of the process or being done?
Just I'm gonna try to reach you around here. We are not talking necessarily about studies. We're talking about moral progress. And that's what really makes it difficult, right? We have our vices. You live in this vicious cycle of repeating the wrong things that attract or that allows those spirits to stay with us and perturb us. And the solution for this issue is exactly to be able to break the cycle, to take a different route. But the spirits are right there, holding you to the best of their abilities for not break that cycle, to not start making yourself better. So it requires tremendous amount of willpower, of a real serious attitude to improve oneself, and assistance of a third party very often. You require a third party to assist us. Is that what your question?
Yeah, you answer part of it, but I'm confused because you said that we're talking about the moral thing, not the studies. But is there any other way to achieve moral evolution without studying?
Without the formal studies that we do over here, yes. Someone who decides that from now on, I'm going to join a group of volunteers and, and instead of staying home and looking for trouble, allow bad ideas to come to me, I'm going to join a volunteer group. I'm going to cook, provide. Do some things. Someone who never heard of spiritualism, to allow to think that it studies the solution, it limits a lot of people that does not have access to studies. The exercise of charity is what really, we need the studies to reach that level, right? For those who are out there practicing charity is being good, they don't need this anymore, right? They are above this. Okay. I'm gonna try to share the book here while João is trying to fix something.
João asked someone to share. He's having trouble.
Yeah, it's gonna try here now. Hold on. I'm trying to find my.
Elmo. Elmo. João said that his internet is down.
Mm.
There's no service until probably by 9:30 in his
Oh.
neighborhood.
Okay.
So I don't think he's coming back.
Okay.
I think Elmo is trying to figure out the book. Okay, it's a bigger problem.
It's a big problem, yeah.
There's no service in his area.
Okay.
Sorry, do you have the book?
Who has lost service?
Oh, he's back! Yay!
Sorry.
You made it.
I made it back. Here it is. Okay, where are we?
The best thing, keep going.
The best thing is here.
Yeah, right there. There we are. Okay, Elmo, you ready? Is Elmo there? Oh, no, he's gone.
Yeah, almost there, but he's
Oh.
on mute.
Okay, should I continue then?
Yes.
He's on
please.
mute.
Okay,
I
okay,
will not mute anymore, but wait a minute.
okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you. I hear you.
All right, you're back.
Tell me
I was-
when.
I was trying to find my Kindle and I couldn't find it. All right, where did we stop?
The best thing. It's on the screen.
Okay, so the best things to continue the best thing. Let's go.
The best thing for these ladies to do is to pray to their protective spirits, not to abandon them. And I have no better advice to give them than to delve into their own consciences and to come to terms with themselves as to whether they have always practiced love and charity toward their neighbor. I do not mean the kind of charity that is doled out, but charity of speech, because unfortunately, they do not know how to hold their tongues, and therefore they do not justify their desire to be free of their tormentor by pious acts. They truly love to speak ill of their neighbor, and the spirit who is obsessing them is taking his revenge. For during his life, he had been a scapegoat for them. They only need to probe their memory, and they will soon discover whom they are dealing with. However, if they resolve to mend their ways, their guardian angels will return to them, and their presence alone will be sufficient to drive off the evil spirit who has attached itself to one of them in particular, because her guardian angel has withdrawn from her due to her reprehensible acts and her evil thoughts. They must pray fervently for those who suffer, and above all, they must practice the virtues that God recommends to all according to their situation.
Thanks. So do you see here that why I make a point to not use the word studies?
Mm.
You know, the study is good, is important, but what the studies does is lead us to act. If those who can bypass the study and act, better for them. We are the ones who still need to study in order to try to act. And we see here, first of all, keep in mind, this comes from a high order spirit, okay? And we see here the straightforwardness, as Christ tells us, let your yes be your yes, let your no be your no. There is no sugarcoating. No, they're straightforward. These leaders better watch what they're doing. They should follow Socrates' advice. Speak only if it's the truth, if it's good, and if it's useful. There's three things together. Talk too much, that's what happens to you. And they talk so much and blasphemy, talk badly about other people that some people got extremely angry, and now in the spiritual world sees in the right of bother them, go after revenge. Okay, so, and something they always say over here, another obsession is a relationship. Sometimes we find hard to make that relationship, to understand, to see it. Whether most often we are not going to see our spectrum of vision, will not allow us to see that relationship. But to imagine that an obsession happens just out of the blue, it's very unfair, not compatible with the divine justice. So there is a relationship in obsession. It's, as Julius said, it's a shake of hand. And these ladies, by talking too much, but not respecting others, but blasphemy, by going about bad mouthing someone took it very offensive as a serious offense, and now they are going after them. Are they right? No, absolutely no. Are they? Are those ladies right? No, absolutely not. Is there a solution for the problem? Yes, very clear over here. When this high order spirit, I have to repeat, the best thing for these ladies to do is to pray for their protector spirits, not abandon them. And I have no better advice to give to them, to delve into their own conscience and come to terms with themselves as to whether they have always practiced love and charity towards their neighbor. The resolution of an obsession is education of two parts. That's something that always says over here. There's two parts involved. The two parts were responsible, not calling guilty, but two parts as responsible, and both must evolve in order to leave behind the ignorance, the moral deficiencies that created that sour relationship, so they could turn it in something more healthy. It says over here, the high Holy Spirit says over here that the guardian angel abandoned them. The guardian angel, as we had said over here, high Holy Spirits and our guardian angels are high Holy Spirits. They respect our decision. They respect who we want to relate with. A higher spirit cannot be around someone with this kind of behavior. They will do their best to them for make them to stop. They will do their best to guide them. But if they continue that behavior, they have nothing else to do but all right. So if my advice is, if my teaching serves you for nothing for now, I'll come back when you're ready for them and take off. It's a temporary thing, okay? And a guardian angel has assumed the responsibility or spiritual guide, that's the word that we use in spiritism. Spiritual guide, not guardian angels, just to eliminate the idea of born perfected spirits. So we rather use the term of spiritual guides. Mm-hmm. They had assumed the responsibility to be with us, to help us. And sometimes the best help is hands off. Yeah. Sometimes in our lives, the best help is hands off. And it takes very often a higher spirit to be comfortable with this hand off. Very often we are not. We feel that you abandon them. You feel that you're not being charitable. You feel that we are not doing the right thing, when sometimes the right thing is exactly that. You want to go downhill that way, you go downhill. When you're ready to start climbing up, I'll be there with you to carry you up as much as I can. And that's exactly the situation of these ladies right now. Comment, questions? And you see here, Nat, why I chose to not like the word studies.
Yeah, was thinking while you were explaining, and also remembering what you said last week. I think it was last week. I don't even know.
I see here.
Regarding, yeah, the spirit. They're not looking for a quick fix. We are trying to cure the soul, the spirit, whatever. And I remember sometimes, you and John say that we are lucky if we have only one obsessor.
That's
So,
right.
so do you think, or is there any study that explain that once let's say that you go, things really go south with one obsessor, and you'll go all the way down, whatever, and then you recover, you get help, and then you overcome that. That's just one obsessor. So chances are that you learn your lesson and you're not gonna fall for it again, or you never know. What do you think? What's your take on?
I think in our evolutionary path, when I say lucky if I have just one obsessor, it's a little bit of a joke in the sense that what we're saying is that knowing what we are now, knowing that is the best of us, we have definitely harmed, offended a lot of people along the way to get what we are today. And some of those individuals may still be angry with us, but most of them are too busy living their own lives, too busy resolving their prior problems, and they will just not be an obsessor of ours. It's someone who really, in order to be an obsessor in a more intense way, like this case over here, it's someone who pretty much sees this as the project of their lives. It's someone who, I don't care about anything else. I'm going to torture that guy as much as I can. I want to see him or herself as much as I can. That is my goal in life. And most of us are not really like that, right? Even people that offend us or that we feel offended by them or who hurts us, we have better things to do, right? We don't go hold that. You may not forgive, but you don't also stop to live in our lives just to go after someone. It's more than a rare case. So when we say that, luck if we have just one obsessor, is meaning that it's likely that there are people over there who don't like us for things that we have done in the past, but they're not gonna go waste their own life being an obsessor for us. But would love to believe that we learn from our mistake and not just commit that mistake once, right? That would be the ideal for all of us. Can we really count on that? No, we can't. I think if we want to go through a very traumatic experience, perhaps we would learn and not commit it again. And that's how the divine justice works, right? It allows us to go to those traumatic experiences, allow us to go to those sour relationships in the hope that we're going to learn from it and not do it again. It's really up to us. It's go ahead.
Yeah, but the way I'm understanding the lesson here is, in order to overcome that, you have to evolve morally, not to be in tune with that, with those that want to obsess you. And we always study here. João says that all the time. Once you learn, once you have the moral thing, you always carry with you. So that's why I was, I'm trying to get a sense. Once you, morally speaking, not intellectually speaking, like really morally speaking,
Yeah.
once you learn that, and you elevate yourself out of that obsessor's vibration, let's put it that way, you pretty much overcame, right? That whatever other obsessors are trying to do anything with you, you are already vibrating a different level, even though they have a beef with you. It's their problem now. It's not yours because you already learned your lesson. You're not gonna share that that thing that is gonna bring everybody down.
Yeah, on that terms, I agree with 100%. Once you truly learn, once you truly evolve yourself, yeah, now you are free from that vice. You overcome that one. If that was the vice that tied you to another spirit, yeah, that is, you no longer have that that thing that binds the two of you. Perhaps that's overcome. So in that, yeah, I agree with you 100%. Once you learn, once you evolve, that's not a problem. Perhaps that spirit will move on and you would move on. I agree 100% with you. In some situations, in many situations, even if, let's say, I am the obsessor and I am really persecuting someone for whatever reason, and that person evolves, that person is no longer doing this kind of things, but I'm still in the bottom of the mud, perhaps that person still carry a degree of responsibility of help me getting out of that mud. He or she did her part for her, which is good, which is excellent, but perhaps that person still carry the responsibility to help me out if I am the one who, if that person is the one who put me down in that situation. The example that you have is Divaldo Pereira Franco in this incarnation, being what he already was in terms of the wonderful work that he does, had an obsession, was, persecuting him, and was pretty serious persecution to a certain point, until that that spirit that he called the shadow was able to transform, learning from Divaldo's example. So even if we do our part for ourselves, perhaps we still carry the responsibility to assist that one that you caused so much harm in the past.
Is that a responsibility or is it a choice?
It's a responsibility. The choice was when you drag that person down to the mud. Now it's a responsibility to take that person out of the mud. And if you morally evolve and you recognize you being responsible, you'd seek for that opportunity to give a hand and help that person if you truly evolved. You'd seek for that opportunity to repair.
Yeah.
Okay.
Continue.
Okay. Upon commenting that these words seem to us to be a bit severe and that perhaps they should be toned down before transmitting them, the spirit added, I must say what I must say, because these ladies are accustomed to believing that they're doing no harm with their tongue, when in fact they're doing great harm. Thus, it has been necessary for this spirit to shock them in such a way as to serve as a warning. This resulted in a far-reaching instruction in affirming that moral imperfections may give access to obsessive spirits, and that the surest way of getting rid of them is to attract good spirits through moral deeds. Good spirits are naturally more powerful than evil ones, and their will is sufficient to repel them. But their only answer those who help themselves by making efforts to improve. Otherwise, they stay away and leave the field free for evil spirits, who thus become instruments of punishment. Good spirits allow them to act for this purpose.
Thanks.
Mhm.
So again, that's what it said. We, in our ignorance, we think that we need to down things down, that be more benevolent with the way we speak, and we should. But at the same time, we have to apply the teachings of Christ. Let your yes be your yes, and your no be your no. You have to be firm in what you know, be firm in direct things in the right way, without sugarcoating. So, like Kardec was saying, this word seems to us to be a bit severe and perhaps should be toned down. And the Spirit says, no, I must say what I must say. Now, there is no sugarcoating over here. And these young ladies, they go around speaking whatever they want, the way they want, when they want, think that this is harmless, and the Spirit says no, it's extremely harmful, and it's hurting a lot of people around, and there is a law of cause and consequence. What goes around comes around. And again, by the teachings of Paul of Tarsus, all concurs for the good. This lady needs to go to that, what they call it, this is right here, shock to the spirits, to be a warning, to teach them a need to better use their words. And again, it's very important to say that there is no empty space. The space will always be occupied by something, by someone. If we continue to repel good spirits around us, if continue by our thoughts, by our behaviors, by our words, we create that incompatibility with the more elevated spirits, that space is not going to be empty. When they take off and say, be on your own, we are open. It's going to happen. No, I can't say it's definitely going to happen. But you open room for less evolved spirits to occupy that space. And again, if this is the best of us, there's a good chance there's some people there who is look for the opportunity to come and get their revenge and get what they believe they belongs to them, and get what believe is in their belief is justice. If that space is open, they may take the opportunity, they use the opportunity to do whatever they think is just. And what the only way to improve is to elevate ourselves so we can have the return of the more evolved spirits. And again, I like the sense of using good spirits are naturally more powerful than evil ones. It's a natural law, it's a natural thing that there is this hierarchy, spiritual hierarchy that is based in morality, not intellectuality, that the higher spirits and the more evolved has this authority of other inferior spirits that is automatically. And if they come in and they seek to stop something, they can do so. If they seek to do, if they think that it's going to be the best thing for us. If not, they will allow us to continue to struggle And even when we free ourselves from those vices that struggle, we still have the necessity for reparation. Okay.
253. However, we must avoid attributing to the direct action of spirits all our troubles, which are usually the result of our own carelessness and a lack of foresight. A farmer once wrote to us that for 12 years, all sorts of mishaps had befallen his animals. His cows had either died or no longer gave milk, and his horses, sheep, and pigs had died. He had offered many novenas, which had not remedied the problem, nor had the masses he attended to or the exorcisms he ordered. Thus, he believed, according to farm superstition, that his animals had been the target of a spell, deeming us unquestionably to possess greater power to conjure than the priests of his village. He asked us for advice. Here is the response we received. The death or sickness of this man's animals stems from his infected stables, which he has not cleaned because it would cause too much.
Thanks. So that's what I always say over here. That's something that perhaps I'm a little bit even rude about it. But to conclude that something is of a spiritual nature must be an exclusion diagnosis. When everything else was ruled out, it was not all the possible physical causes. All the possible physical cause has been ruled out, then you consider a spiritual cause behind whatever event is happening. Especially in the very beginning when you start learning a little bit spiritism, we come to these idiotic relationships where everything is from the spiritual world. The dog barked, oh, he's seeing spirits. Dog barked because they can talk. Simple as that. Dog has a sense of smell that is at least 1,000 times stronger than ours. God knows what they're smelling over there, make them bark. Why you have to say it's spirit? It's just plain silly, nonsensical. And Kardec, that's very important here. You have to make sure that we evaluate all the possible causes. The guy is too greedy, he's too cheap to clean up the area where the animals stays, and the animals get sick, and he is quick to attribute to spirits and ordering all kinds of spiritual things to eliminate a physical problem that is infections for lack of hygiene. I think it's a very, very important. Seer Nashrat is a very important advice from Kardec. When you see people that come to white talking to us, that they open their mouth and everything is from the spirits. And we ask, have you checked this yet? No. Have you checked that yet? No. So I can say there's a spirit. Go check this and that and that and that and that and that first. Then you come back and talk to me.
That is true.
Wasn't this before Pasteur? What year was Pasteur with all the discoveries on microbes?
They are contemporaneous. It was after that. This is already after Pasteur, though. But again, the cause of the animal thing is of a moral reason. It's greed. The guy was too cheap to take care of his animals. Does not want to spend the necessary money to keep the animals' health. Again, it's a moral thing that creates all these issues. Okay.
54. We shall close this chapter with the Spirit's responses to a few other questions that will support what we have stated. Number 1, why can't certain mediums free themselves from evil spirits who attach to them? And why don't the good spirits whom they call upon have enough power to drive the others away and communicate through their intermediation? Good spirits do not lack the power. Rather, the mediums are almost never in any position to help them. Their nature is more adequate for other relationships, and their fluid identifies more with one spirit than another. This is what gives such power to the spirits who want to deceive them.
Okay, you already covered that, right? First one, a higher spirit does not lack power, does not lose that power. It's not be weakened by the lower spirits. They make a choice to act or not to act for the benefit of the person who is suffering the persecution. In this case here, again, Casimiro's book is speaking of mediums. There is something called affinity, which is a law, it's another natural law. Compatibility of thoughts, compatibility of the energies, and thought is energies, that will allow us to receive the approximation of spirits A or spirits B. If my sentiments, my words, my intentions lead me to less evolved spirits, that's what I'm gonna get around me. Right? I cannot behave in one way, think and speak in a way, and expect to have different individuals around me. It just doesn't work like that. Okay.
Hey, Elmo.
Yep.
I'm just having a difficult on the moral aspect. It's because I can understand, for example, on any case of obsession, because to me, obsession, I think the part where we suffer is where is more for the consequence when we realize we made a mistake, because I think human nature is to avoid pain or suffering. So if the obsession from the beginning, from the jump, was something that wasn't pleasure, wasn't giving us something that to feel good or better or whatever it is, the feeling will not work. So assuming in the beginning, for ego or whatever reason is not something that we create a suffering. That's why it's so hard to break, because it gives us something as well. But in the case that on obsessions, in cases where people, for example, their stuff from their house, they are being throwing all over the place, and they are being hit, and they are looking for a way out, and they're looking for a spirit center, they are trying to do something, and it's happening because the way we're studying, because of one of the reasons, because of a moral thing. Wouldn't that be enough to the Cavaliers come to help them, even though they're not there in the moral state per se, since they are making the effort, since we are studying so many times that they just want to see from us a little bit of effort in order to help us out?
The Cavalier is already there. At the moment that you elevate the quality of sentiments, or your emotions, or your thoughts, that you stop kicking the dogs and you're walking the right path, they are there with you. Now, is that enough to, at a point blank, eliminate the process of obsession once? No, or may not be. Again, we can use the example of devout Pereira Franklin. This reincarnation already had started the wonderful work that he was doing, already being by side with Giovanna de Angelis. He was still having to deal with the shadow. Again, we still have the responsibility to repair. It's not like a magic trick. Now I'm here, now we stop everything and everything is resolved. No, it's a process. It's gonna go through a process. Okay, and it's still that even if right now I convert myself into the next saint, I still have to have responsibility with those that I threw in the depth of ignorance, and I still having a hard time to forgive, and still have a hard time to see that I had changed, because in their eyes, I'm still the same criminal who committed all that crime in the past. There is a process going on. It's not going to stop immediately just like that. I still carry responsibility for my actions in the past. And very often, we always look at the past, but more important is what we are doing now. Like the case of these ladies, they are doing the same thing right then and there. They still have not stopped. So we spend the entire life kicking the dog. And one day we stop to kick the dogs, and we decide to change. Now I'm going to church 7 days a week and everything has to stop. No, it takes some time. It's a process. There's no magic wand. And besides that, I have the responsibility of assist those that I caused so much harm in the past. Okay?
Okay, number 2. However, it seems to us that they're truly deserving individuals who are morally irreprehensible, but who are nevertheless prevented from communicating with good spirits. It is a trial. Who knows if they might not have a stain of evil on their heart, if a little pride does not hide behind their appearance of goodness. Such trials reveal to the obsessed their weakness and that they should strive to be more humble. Is there anyone on the whole world whom you can call perfect? Those who seem to possess all the appearances of virtue can still have many secret defects and all living of imperfection. Thus, for example, you say that some particular man does not practice any evil, that he is loyal in all his social relationships, and that he is a good and worthy individual. But how do you know that those qualities are not stained with pride, that there is not some trace of selfishness in him, that he is not greedy, jealous, resentful, slanderous, and many other things that you do not perceive, since your relationship with him gives you no opportunity to discover them? The most powerful means of combating the influence of evil spirits is to approach the nature of the good ones as much as possible.
I think that kind of answers Renata's question. First of all, we don't know what is in people's hearts. We hear them, we can see their actions. As Christ has taught us, we can sing through thought, not necessarily have to act on it. If I desire the neighbor's wife, I had already sinned without ever touching her, right? Our perception, our ability to perceive to notice things is very limited. And those that we put on a pedestal may not deserve to be on a pedestal. Actually, none of us deserves to be on a pedestal if we incarnate in this planet, right? There is no, again, there is no perfect in this earth. So again, we'll go through the process here. Kardec's talking about mediums, why some mediums only receive not eloquent spirits only, and this apparently deserves to be receiving something better. But we don't really know. We don't really know. We don't really know not only of that person, but what's best for that person. What will lead that person to make the necessary strides to really get rid of those low order spirits once and for all. Perhaps you might have to stick with them for a while in this process of liberation from them. It may take a little longer. I think that the important thing in this topic here is that we need to be very careful and be very humble to understand that our ability to understand, to see things is very limited when it comes to others. Even when it comes to ourselves, we barely know ourselves. But to others is extremely limited. And not only what's the relationship of that medium with those spirits, of what is good for both, for that medium and for those spirits also. Our ability to answer those questions is very limited, if not zero. So if so good mediums, eloquent mediums are being bombarded with some degrees of obsessions, there is solution. The solution is good to be here, but perhaps the best for them at that moment is to go to that. Or perhaps they're not doing enough to get rid of that. We don't know. And that's the importance of not being judgmental on both sides. You know, oh, it's too good to be suffering this. Well, if it was too good to be suffering this, would not be suffering this. Because there is something that's called divine justice. Oh, he doesn't deserve it. Who are you to tell? We just don't know. But again, according to Paul of Tarsus, and I trust him, all things concurs for the good. So maybe a little pain now will alleviate a tremendous amount of serious pains in the future. Okay, I think we're a minute over. Any questions? Right, all right, you can make a final prayer for us. Thank you.
Absolutely. And now as we come to the end of our beautiful meeting of understanding again who we are, what is there for us to better ourselves. And through this beautiful chapter of obsession, we are grateful, dear Lord, that you continue reminding us through studies what is there for us to do with our hearts full of gratitude. May we continue to understand the power of prayer, but the action most important, that is essential. Without both, we'd not be able to progress as fast. So let's continue to study throughout the week these beautiful, beautiful lessons that are given to us to start a beautiful year again. We thank you, dear Lord, and spiritual benefactors, our guardian angels that are always with us. May we continue to pray, dear Father, for all our brothers and sisters that are still going through difficulties, some with pain and sorrows. For our brothers and sisters who have gone to the spiritual world, for the families that are left behind. Let's continue to pray for their strength and their courage. We pray for the Spiritist Group of New York, for the United States Spiritist Council, for the United States Spiritist Federation, all Spiritist centers throughout this planet Earth that are giving us so much peace and understanding in our lives. With a heart full of gratitude, we ask that we continue throughout the week with our prayers, with strength and courage to all our families and loved ones. Dear Lord, and with that in mind, we ask permission to close this meeting tonight. So be it.
Thank you. Thanks, Zoraida. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all. Thank you all.
Bye. Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you.
All right,
Bye.
thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Great job, guys.
Bye.
Oh.
Bye.
As an Indian.
Bye-bye.
What happened? You lost internet completely?
Completely, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Dropped completely the internet.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
I was in the process of finding my Kindle that I couldn't find when they came back. I actually should have the Kindle ready, available from the beginning to see if that happens again.
Escuta, o domingo seguinte, vamos estudar o Evangelho de novo, Elmo, porque eu não consegui pensar em nada melhor.
Perfect. Okay.
Tá? Porque
Back to get gospel, no problem.
o Evangelho nunca é demais, sempre ajuda, começo de ano é bom.
Yeah, ótimo.
We need gospel.
Ótimo. Não tem problema. Tá.
Beleza.
Então, nesse domingo você não tá, né?
Nesse domingo eu não tô, eu tô dando palestra lá para o grupo lá da André e do Marcelo lá em Miami.
Ok. Tudo bem.
Eu tinha até pensado em dar essa palestra, mas depois eu estava pensando, vamos estudar Evangelho. Eu não sei se você viu se tinha uma menina nova aí no coisa chamada Sofia.
Vi.
Ela
Brasileira, não é?
Ela é brasileira, tem 20 anos, escreveu aí essa semana que está com perturbações espirituais, que tem espíritos perturbando, e a mãe dela é espírita, ela frequentava no Brasil, mas que estava querendo ajuda, não sei o quê. Aí eu falei para ela, como o centro está fechado, né, falei no telefone com ela ontem, que eu dei algumas instruções de como melhorar a energia, etc., fazer o evangelho, etc. E falei para ela, se puder, você entra no estudo da mediunidade lá, que é importante, tal. Quer dizer, não quis. Mandei tudo para ela, mas falei para ela, se puder, entrar nesse estudo, e entrou, né?
Entrou. Ela ficou até o final?
Ficou até o final. Escreveu aqui para mim, agora acabou de me escrever no WhatsApp. Foi muito esclarecedor, obrigado. Ok,
ótimo. Ok. Agora fica para o gasto também, ajuda mais ainda.
Tá bom. Okay. Não teve como falar para você para dar uma, mas você deu o resuminho no começo e foi bom, foi ótimo, que você resumiu bem o que a gente estava estudando, e esse capítulo acho que foi bom para ela, porque é exatamente o que ela estava passando, eu acho, tá? Quer dizer, que não é a fascinação, não é a subjugação, é a influência espiritual. Então, acho que foi legal.
Ótimo.
Bom,
ok.
Beleza. Até
quinta.
Até quinta, então, né? Tá bom.
Tchau.
Tchau.